What's up, peeps? I hope you guys came hungry today, or at least salivating through your headphones, because I have here the co-founder of one of the most popular food trucks out here in Vegas. Raise your hand if you have ever been to Raging Tacos food truck. I know I've been there a few times. I know a bunch of people who have been there, and I had multiple fans of the show actually reach out to me to reach out to this man to get him on the show and talk about the popularity of his food truck. And he's also the host of Vegas Must Try YouTube channel, which has around 5,000 subscriptions. So thank you, George, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, man. Like we were saying right before this, I had a few people from UNLV reach out to me to hit you up. And then I ran into you again right in the arts district. You're just plopped up right outside Cerveza. And I was like, all right, I think this is fate now.
Yeah. Speaking of Cerveza, I got their shirt on right now. But yeah, man, it was funny just seeing you pop up. You're like, hey, what's up, man? Yeah.
It's interesting. So tell me this. I've been trying to figure out like the logistics of food trucks and how everything pops up because of, I'm sure there's some sort of ordinances that surround it and regulations. More specifically, when you're popped up out of Cerveza, do you have to go through an approval through the local government to pop up outside of businesses like that?
Yeah. So as you said, you're trying to figure out the regulations. We are too. No, we did our initial kind of like we know all the rules. You know what you're supposed to and not supposed to do. Let's just say a lot of the food we are some of the ones that follow the stuff as you're supposed to. In the food truck industry, people are very, they kind of go, if you don't get caught, basically you'll be fine type of deal. We don't like to do that too much. So there's regulations as far as you're supposed to be parked at a specific place if it's public for 30 minutes and then you have to leave. And you have to move, I think, about 100 feet or something like that. I forgot. Either way, we don't do that. We always get the permission of the owners who we're there for. So, for example, Cerveza, we're there and we only sit for 4 hours because after 4 hours, you have to change basically all the equipment that you're using. All the pans that you have to change those out after 4 hours. So usually, a kitchen is not big enough at a food truck to be able to do that comfortably. And so usually food trucks stay for 4 hours. Some food trucks just keep going, and that's when the rules get a little hazy. But for the most part, I would say the rules here in Vegas are very, I don't know, they're very
loose.
They're a little strict.
Okay.
People follow them loosely, but they're a little strict. For example, I can't go ahead and park next to El Cortez because there's, something happened a while ago with food trucks being there, restaurants complaining that it is true. I mean, they're paying a ton of taxes and rent to have their spot in downtown at a prime location when a food truck can just park right next to them. So another regulation is you have to be 150 feet away from restaurant's main door, like the front door. You have to be away from that. But I think the downtown, the Strip, and several other locations, they have more specific regulations. But yeah, man, it's a hustle. The stuff is always changing, so you just kind of have to know how to adjust correctly. Yeah, but it's fun. That's what keeps us young, I guess.
Yeah, in such a young industry, the food truck industry, I feel like it's probably been around for 20 years or longer, but the popularity of it, I feel like, has risen with the music festival scene. As it's become popular, you just see dozens and dozens of food trucks, and now even places like Life is Beautiful, they put an emphasis on the type of food trucks that are going to be in there because. That's the nature of music festivals. They've been able to establish the variety of music culture there, but now the food culture, and I'm sure you've recognized this as well as having your own YouTube channel where you go around and try different foods. The passionate community behind the food community it's vast.
Right. Yeah. Because food is like universal, whether you have your different cuisines. So it kind of involves everyone. But yeah, I believe the food industry, or more specifically, food trucks, took another leap towards being a major hub of food trucks like San Francisco or LA, like New York, because even though this place is not a commuter city, like you don't walk to go to the store, you drive. The big influx of festivals started making that happen. Like Life is Beautiful, Foodie Fest. You know, you have your separate what's the Downtown Event Center? They started having food trucks there because there's always a lot of live music here. So yeah, those kind of things kind of contributed to it. But in this year actually, the pandemic, the person who built our food truck, it's a one of the local food truck builders in town. They had an excessive amount of work when the pandemic happened. So I think it was just people who had money in the bank who were like, you know what, now we don't have jobs. Let's use this money and actually start our own business, because you like to cook, I like to cook. So as a family, they buy trailers or buy food trucks, and then they start working on them. There's a lot of people who end up not finishing the contract, end up returning them or selling them or something. But nonetheless, it completely boomed, as far as I know. Right, I've only been in the business for about a year now, known about it for about 2, but just really in the business for a year. And I've seen it grow in the short time that I've been on, and I've seen some trucks close and a lot of them open.
Yeah, it's probably fairly expensive to operate a kitchen on wheels. But I think the coronavirus kind of accelerated a trend that was already happening. I had a man on here who owns the Blind Pig, and he's converting his restaurant into a ghost kitchen. So it's basically like a blank slated kitchen that's going to open as multiple kitchens, and it's going to be delivery only. So people are going much more mobile with not just food distribution and food attainment, but also businesses and remote working and all of these different natures that you need to be able to take your business and move it with you. So it's kind of how I envision food trucks to be, as this kitchen on wheels. And now you could kind of plop up wherever you need to, or wherever the business needs you. Right. I've seen a lot of creativity with food trucks. And now I remember going to one of the dispensaries the opening day that the dispensaries were legalized, and there was a food truck popped up there. You see food trucks propped up outside of like tire shops and all kinds of different businesses
that
you
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing that same thing.
Yeah, so it's like now you can serve multiple people and you can make a buck, rather than having to sit around and hope and pray that people order from you or come to you. You're just like, yo, I'm going to go hustle and I'm going to drive right out there. It's kind of like a very emblematic symbol of how the Vegas culture is.
Right. Yeah. Very on your feet. That's why people like us, we like it for those factors, right? We don't have to wait for people to come to us. We go to them. But I would say competitors or people that are restaurant owners or stuff like that, that's why they don't like them, because there's a little bit of unfairness there. But, everyone has their own advantages. I would like to have a place to call home base, where we can prep everything there and everything goes in the fridges, and all you have to do is give it to the customer, as opposed to we get there, we have to worry about several things and then get to the spot. The generator has to be working, the gas, the water heater, everything has to be working. And if one of those things go down, you can't serve anyone. If your engine goes down, you can't serve anyone. Your tire goes down. Like, there's a lot of factors. So there's obviously ups and downs to everything, but I think the food truck industry is it's definitely well equipped for something like this, like a pandemic, and it's going pretty good so far.
I have to say, I was watching your YouTube channel, the Raging Tacos YouTube channel, and it seems like you guys went through hundreds of missteps along the process, and I kind of want to dive into that, because watching the video, it gives you a sense of motivation, but also a sense of like decrepitness that you're just like, man, there's so many hurdles that at some point watching it, I felt like you guys were just going to give up because it's a pain in the ass. So let's start to the beginning of creating Raging Tacos, and I'm more curious on what inspired you guys to dive into the food truck industry and brand it as Raging Tacos.
So initially when I was working in a marketing office. Diego was working at a day club. He got me a job there. I decided to quit, do something on my own. And then we both decided to, get together and do something. We didn't know exactly what that was. We initially wanted to do like a healthy kind of food truck. But one, we don't have any experience. And two, we don't have any experience. Like we just, we come from a marketing background, and he had like a physical therapy kind of degree. So we just didn't know a whole lot. We just knew that we wanted to do something. So Vegas Must Try led me to make a video for one of the local taco guys in town. He has a trailer, makes a ton of money whatever. So I was just like, hey, can I make a video for you? You know, you can keep all the content, you know, just obviously the obvious pitch. And he's like, he doesn't really get social media like that, but he knows that I was like going to help him. So he's like, yeah, go ahead. And then as I was doing that, he was like, hey, I have a trailer. If you know anyone that wants to buy or rent it, you know, I can teach you everything and do blah, 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 blah. So he kind of saw that I was a little interested in like at least the idea that, you know, that someone that I know can benefit from that. And then I was like, wait, I can benefit from that. What do you mean? So then I told my buddy Diego, my business partner now, and I told him about it. It wasn't the most glamorous kind of, you know, feel that we were going for. We were wanting to do something healthy, kind of like, and then we transitioned into like a healthy and fatty, kind of like skinny fats. Like, you know, we're just dabbling around ideas. And then here was this guy who was going to teach us everything he knew for the past, you know, 2 decades on, you know, making tacos and stuff. So then, yeah, we decided to jump on him. He was going to let us borrow, or he was going to rent a trailer to us, and we were just going to have his name, his procedures, his menu, and all that. So as he was teaching us, which it didn't last for that long, he was teaching us kind of like the ways. He ended up selling that trailer without letting us know. And we the way I found out, I was driving down on Charleston and I saw the trailer park somewhere, and I was like, that looks a lot like the trailer that we're gonna use. And yeah, sure enough, it was it. So I asked him. He's like, yeah, someone just, you know, offered cash. So I was like, all right, well, now we have some money saved up. Now we have, you know, a little bit of the knowledge, not all of it by any means. We still had a ton to learn. But I was like, let's just do it ourselves. You know, now it kind of makes sense. And yeah, we jumped on that. We were, you know, hours and hours of making salsas, watching YouTube videos. Obviously, that's the cool thing about being like someone starting a business in this day and age is like you can learn anything.
Literally anything.
Yeah, if not, you can just ask questions or something. Or worst case scenario, you hire someone to teach you or something. But yeah, we just started making salsa, started burning things, you know, just it was a cool learning experience. We got everything down, and then we just pulled the trigger on the truck. And yeah, that's where we're at so far. And the cool thing, and I'm extremely glad that we went this route, is that we were now able to brand Raging Tacos, which the name wasn't Raging Tacos originally.
What was the original name?
It was Craving Tacos. Yeah, so initially we thought of the name. We didn't love it, but we were like, you know what, this is nice. We had the logo made, which looks exactly like the one we have now. We were touring commissaries here in Vegas because every truck has to go to a commissary at the end of the night. We were touring one, and then the lady opens the door, and then there's a trailer that says Craving Tacos, like right like 5 feet away from our faces, and we're like, we just look at each other. The lady kept talking about the features of the commissary, and we were just like, dude, like, are you seeing this? And the lady just asked a question, and we didn't answer or anything. We were just like looking at each other like, dang. And then we talked to some friends that were lawyers and stuff. We're like, hey, can we get away with this? Because when I was doing my research, I wasn't accounting for someone misspelling craving. They didn't have the G. So they had Craven Tacos. So when I was looking up on, you know, the databases, nothing would come up. And I guess I just didn't look well enough or something. But yeah, we ended up changing the name. The name to Raging Tacos is more kind of like us. It came almost right away. Like a couple of days later, we tried it. We changed the name. We're like, I guess it's kind of cool. But then it just grew on us. And then every time I tell the story, people tell me like, you're crazy. Like Raging Tacos is so much better.
It is way better.
And at the beginning, we didn't think so. When we updated the logo, we were both like, oh my God, like we just weren't sure. But yeah, no, it changed, and the logo didn't change a whole lot. Raging is mostly like, well, you know what we do. You've been to like clubs or raves or stuff like that. It's like you rage.
It's a very Vegas culture.
Right. It's like go rage, right? Rage on, you know, stuff like that. So it kind of fit us a little bit better. And we created a salsa that was that is ghost pepper, mango habanero, and a bunch of other stuff. And like we called it the Raging Salsa. It's like a bright orangey color, just like the logo. So we just kind of worked around stuff. We love the name now, where this is us, right? So we've seen some good stuff happen. Started.
How many times in college did we used to say, yeah, we're about to throw a Rager tonight?
Yeah. Oh, that Rager was sick.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean Rager? It was a kickback. And it's always like that rage was like at the higher echelon of party.
That's what you wanted your party to be described as.
A Rager, yeah.
So it's the best way to describe a taco. It's like you want to have these these fancy Raging tacos. And your guys' tacos more specifically, it's funny because in Vegas, I read an article a few years ago, and I think Vegas has the most taco trucks, shops per capita in the entire United States. It was like one taco shop for every like 250 people in Vegas or something like that. So it's like,
I can see that.
it's a huge market, but obviously there's the demand there, else nobody would do it. And your guys' tacos isn't like a typical taco that's like the two like soft white shells that are like very small. You have the way of like how you present it with wrapping it, and it's like half of the taco is like sticking out and it kind of like flowers out a little bit.
Flares a little
like
bit.
Flares a little bit, and the texture, and I don't know if the meat or whatever, but it's a very unique taco that I haven't really had anywhere else. And I think tying that with the experience of going to a taco truck and grabbing it, and then kind of going and either sitting in your car or sitting at a picnic table if you're at a festival and eating it, it's something that doesn't compare to like going to Roberto's at 4 a.m. and getting tacos.
Right. Yeah. There's different qualities and different levels to tacos. I'm not saying ours are the best, but I think ours are pretty damn good. And we wouldn't have jumped on this if we didn't like that guy's tacos, right? His initial kind of like teachings were like, you know what, we can run with this and then do a little bit different stuff. But yeah, no, that's technically it. And when it comes to the competition of tacos, you know, a lot of places are very indistinguishable from each other. But we wanted to be the food truck that would serve East Side level of tacos, not on the East Side.
Yeah.
So, you know, just sometimes they say when you want to find the best tacos, you kind of have to go over there. Some lady that doesn't speak English or something.
Yeah, selling it in her front yard or
right, something like authentic, right? That's what people want. But so that's what we wanted to bring to like other sides of town, and the food truck just like fit perfectly on that.
Are you from the East Side?
Yeah.
Really?
I was raised there.
High school.
Eldorado.
Okay, I went to shop.
Yeah. We're don't we have like that cleat?
Yeah, the cleat game. What year did you graduate?
2013.
Okay.
Yeah. When did you graduate?
2010. And 2010, there was like a prank that we did where
When you guys spray painted everything, was that it?
spray paint, toilet papers, and some like very not PG flyers that were passed around.
Yeah, was it the Sparky, the mascot?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what.
It's definitely some not PG content on there.
Was that your senior prank?
That was our senior prank, and first time saying this on air, or publicly. I was the only one that got away with the entire thing.
Really, that's so cool.
Everyone else got suspended and expelled. And
you were a good guy though, right? You were a good guy hanging out with the bad ones, or something like that?
We'll go with that. And then so half the football team ended up getting suspended, and I ended up playing in that football game. And
by yourself, it was just you.
I think there was like 20 people who ended up playing in the game.
Wow.
So many people were suspended, and we ended up losing 33 to 6 or something like that. But I was the only one that scored the touchdown, so it was like kind of like a double LOL in my case. But yeah, the East Side, there's this type of culture that's cultivated on the East Side that's not replicated anywhere else in the city, which is like that there's a lot more ethnicity and a lot more promise with how I guess the community kind of grows, ever evolving. And I feel like the East Side's really close within each other. It's not like Summerlin where the whole community's kind of gated off from each other. And the same with Henderson's kind of going that way. The East Side's like very open. People, you know, it's a lower middle class kind of area, but the community resonated with me a lot growing up there, just because everyone was kind of trying to work with each other and going through these like trials and tribulations with one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. The East Side definitely has a lot of a color in that, and like skin, but I mean like there's a lot of like flavor to the East Side, right? There's a lot of potential out there, and I'm sometimes disappointed by my inability to help other people, you know, see other things. And, you know, I eventually want to go back to my high school and be able to offer a scholarship to any senior or something like that.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
That's a goal of mine, but until I can help myself, that's something that I have in mind for sure.
You ever take the food truck down there, plop it up?
No, I haven't been able to. Just mainly we do, you know, kind of like the southeast, like UNLV area. We do Henderson, Southwest. That's just mainly where our audience is.
Okay, so is there like designated areas to go to? The first time I had Raging Tacos, you guys were kind of plopped up on, I think it was like Blue Diamond or one of those streets
on that dirt
lot where there was like 6 or 7 trucks. Sometimes when I go to like Sunset Park, I see food trucks in there. I know downtown in this area, there was like a food truck community where they wanted to have like a food truck kind of like food court kind of thing.
Was that like right in the parking lot?
Yeah, I don't know if it ever came to be, but I remember there was like a lot of promise to it because that's something that some other cities have as well, and I think would do very well. So
so there isn't when you saw us over there on Blue Diamond and in the desert basically, Blue Diamond and Durango, that got shut down because a lot of people there were complaining to the city that there was a lot of car accidents and a lot of traffic there, which was true, but I don't think there was like a lot of
because
accidents.
of you guys.
Because of all the food trucks there. Someone told us to go there, that it was great, so we went there. Yeah, we did amazing sales compared to where we were before, but that recently got shut down by the park rangers. They said that that's public land and we're not supposed to be there. We need one of those photography kind of licenses that people like photographers get at Red Rock. You need to get some of those, and apparently it takes like 6 months to get that, and it's expensive and stuff. So that they were basically shutting it down, and then the health department went there and shut it down. I think they used COVID to do that, which I mean, if you're outside, that's another conversation, right? So they shut that down. They're saying that food trucks were staying there longer than 30 minutes or 4 hours or whatever. So we weren't there to get shut down like that, but we just know that place was a no-go. And the park ranger said that next time you were caught there, you were getting a $2,000 ticket, and then the second infraction would be like up to $100,000. So I was like, it's definitely more than we have. I was like, yeah, we're escaping on that. So then we started moving around other resources. There's other places to book. Right now we're parking at Smith's. We're going to different areas. Like, for example, Cerveza, they're having us there every other Friday. We have something worked out with RC Willie. That's some kind of permission. So we're moving around a lot. We're doing everything, hopefully by the book as far as we know.
So do you have to build relationships with the owners of those businesses?
Yeah. Last Friday we were at Huddle, which is
right here,
around the corner. Yeah.
You just go in there and approach them and tell them that you own a food truck.
The thing with Huddle, which Huddle Brewery, go check them out. Yep. They came by the truck when we were on Blue Diamond and Durango, and they were like, "Hey man, we're gonna open, in about a month or so. So why don't you guys come check us out? Come, stand out there. We're not gonna sell food." So that was perfect. That's usually how it goes, right? Someone has an event, someone has a private party, or a boss wants to feed all their employees, and that's kind of how it goes. We used to live almost strictly off of those private parties, but when COVID happened.
Yeah, so the food truck industry right now, obviously it's a blooming industry. It's still in its infancy. Right now, it's more of a case-by-case basis, traveling to different businesses that ask you to be there. But I'm assuming down the road, there's going to be more infrastructure and there's going to be more of a designated areas for you guys to go to.
I sure hope so. There's talks between food truck owners right now to make some kind of coalition and go talk to City Hall and change some things around, because it gets a little tough, but who knows how much more we can get. But if there's a petition, if there's something that needs to be done, we'll for sure be there. So
is the mecca of finding events being at like a music festival? Would that be like kind of the top of where you want to be?
I don't know from experience, because we started in January and March, everything went down. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Actually, we put in our $2,000 deposit for Foodie Fest, and then the next week everything got shut down. So not only were we we couldn't afford those $2,000, so now we were just completely gutted. But there's some food truck owners that just live by, they swear by festivals like EDC, Life is Beautiful. They're like, you make $40,000 in that weekend. Of course, you just spend a lot of money, but. There's some people that say they love doing that. The bad thing about that, though, is that they take a lot of vendor fees. I think EDC, they say something like 40% of your sales, 60%.
Oh, shit.
It was something outrageous. I was like, so how are you supposed to make money? That's why, the 32-ounce lemonade cup is $15. Like that's why the prices rise, because they need to make their own. But yeah, no, people think it's the best place to be. In my opinion, the best place to be is somewhere around an affluent area that you're allowed to be there for longer than 4 hours. And that you need a stationary permit. That would be like the gold mine, in my opinion. Just being somewhere like maybe at a gas station somewhere in Henderson or Southwest, something like that, in Summerlin, and just being stationary there. Because then you can focus on marketing. Then you can have, happy hour specials, and you can do targeting on Facebook and Instagram and doing stuff like that. Yelp definitely helped a ton for us. But luckily, we had some really good reviews early on. So then tourists would come by because they said they saw us on Facebook. People from Utah would come by. They just look up tacos, and then they come straight to us because we had a specific location. We wouldn't move at first. It was at a car wash, and people were always coming by. And I mean, not in massive amounts, but given the following that we have now, which is somewhere nearing 10,000 now, if we didn't move, we would have a ton of people come by.
Did your channel Vegas Must Try It assist in building a community around the truck? Because 5,000 subscribers, it's not a small number, it's not a gigantic number, but I'm assuming the majority of those subscribers are probably in Vegas or the surrounding area or frequent visitors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I can attribute a whole lot to Vegas Must Try as far as the amount of customers that we got, but definitely it opened doors into me meeting local foodies in town, like Lindsay from Las Vegas Foodie. I'm not sure if you know her. You should definitely have her on the podcast. She's great. She recently had her baby. Congrats to her. She's one of the biggest foodies in town, and because of her, she invited me to other foodie events, and I was able to meet other foodies in town. When I opened the truck, I was able to bring them on, had like a foodie event, gave them all tacos, made a bunch of stuff, and that gave us a huge push to begin with. So Vegas Must Try has definitely been instrumental. One, to initially be able to create Raging Tacos, because I wouldn't have met, the guy who initially gave us the idea. And two, is just gave me the experience of taking photos and uploading them, work the lighting and stuff like that, hashtags, all that stuff. It taught me in advance to be able to manage a social media page. And then the three was having the influencers come by and take a bunch of photos. Once in a while, they come by again, they take other pictures, and then they re-upload them. So
yeah, you realize how important that is to get the social media influencers or even small channels, anything like that, that just come in and recognize you and put you out there. That's
it's great. I love it.
It's cool. That's something I realized during this podcast as well, is how important it is to, no matter how big somebody's following it is, you have to build a foundation at some point, and you need to build these relationships one at a time. It's hard to just become viral, like a viral food truck. You just have to consistently go out there, meet different communities, expand yourself, pass out phone numbers, groundwork, all these different things that you don't even realize until you actually get down into the nitty gritty of the day in and day out activities of managing a food truck or a small channel.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a lot of small steps that just, you look back and you realize they amount to something greater. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely the work, right? You have to put in the work. Me obviously not having kids, just a really lenient girlfriend that lets me fail if I need to, and just an amazing partner, Diego, who's extremely hardworking, smart guy. So we've had things work against us, but I think we're much stronger than those adversities. So we're just we're channeling our energy towards what I think is the right way.
How many people operate the truck?
As far as ownership, or like
so like if you're out there serving, how many people are inside of the truck?
Usually 3. We have a big party 4. If we have like one of those mammoth parties that we have to serve. Recently we did like a political day, like election day lunch, free tacos for everyone that got there. If 300 people in 4 hours or 3 hours, something like that. That required 5 people. And that's, someone stalking at all times, handing out stuff. The other person, on the grill, someone else making the tacos, someone else like finalizing the presentation. So yeah, that needs anything more than 5. I wouldn't know what to do with an extra person, but it's usually 3. Like for example, at Cerveza, it's usually 3 of us, a cashier and 2 people in the back. the cashier jumps back and forth, delivering food and expo and coming back. Yeah, it's a small place, right? And other food truck owners go inside our truck and they're like, wow, you have so much room. And I was just like, how do you do it? Like, I could not imagine that.
So imagine I'm somebody who's looking into getting a food truck or entering the industry. What are the procedures in creating a food truck? Like what are the first steps as far as LLC formation, getting a truck, allocating it, and so on?
Mm-hmm. So I'll only speak on the stuff that we have done. I'm not, maybe there's other processes or other procedures for other people, but yeah, we got our LLC, then we got our EIN number, our tax number. After that, obviously you have to acquire the truck. Once you have the truck, we're actually in the process of doing that to another trailer. So we're expanding now. So cool. I kind of have that just kind of fresh in my memory. So you have to get the health inspection. You have to fill out a whole form, whatever. You have to tell them what equipment you have in there, what temperatures. There's like a little bit of a questionnaire there to make sure that you have, competent like health regulations and knowledge and stuff. So once you fill that in, you have to pay the fees, of course, the fees always. Then an inspector comes by, checks the truck, makes sure everything works, hot water works, all the appliances work. Then after that, you get your license. It's not your grade that comes in later, but you get what lets you operate until that happens. So there's the health inspection of the truck. What is it? It's like a 7-step. Oh yeah, fire department. You have to get that checked in. Make sure you have the fire extinguishers. Make sure the hood vents work. Make sure the fire suppression system works, which costs like $3,000 to install. So there's fire department, health department, obviously the EIN number, LLC, insurance. This is a big one. Because,
I didn't even realize about insurance. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, for a food truck, you need both auto insurance for the food truck itself to drive, and you need a business insurance, it's like a liability insurance. So if you're going to EDC, they require like a $5 million insurance policy. If you're going to smaller events like Foodie Fest, I think they require like a $2 million or $1 million insurance, $2 million aggregate, something like that. So that's another step that they're really expensive. At least for us, we shopped around for like 4 different places. Luckily, someone recommended someone from Texas or something like that, and we were able to get it for much cheaper, but that's really pricey. So you need to have all those things together. I think it's like a total of 7. I may be missing something. Once you have all those, you submit for you to get your Las Vegas city license. Then after that, once you have that, it's like it's like that tan one that says business license right above.
The one that everyone hangs like in their business, like right next to the door.
Proud to get. Yeah, we also have it, but it's kind of like tucked by the fridge. It's like all beat up. But yeah, that's the hard one to get. And once you have that, you can operate.
Do you guys own the truck, or are you leasing it through?
Yeah, right now we have 2 trucks, or one of them is a trailer that's pretty badass. It's like a 16-footer or something like that.
It's like an attachment?
Yeah, so it's one that you have to haul with you.
Okay.
So we have to buy a truck to haul that. It's just dropping money everywhere. Anyway, we got that, and that one's ours. The one we have right now, we're renting. And our lease is up soon, but we're gonna renew it just because we found some good success with it. It didn't make sense for us, given that we didn't have any culinary background or any experience in the industry. We were like, dude, let's just rent first. Yeah, and then see what's happening. We were this close in buying one, but then we saw that this opportunity came up to buy this other one for a good price, so we just jumped on it. And so the thing with our expansion, we're gonna have this trailer set up, opened up for maybe 5-6 days a week for long hours, 8-10 hours, and the truck that we have now is going to events. It's going to like those events that we go for 4 hours, go in, go out, make your money and leave, which is technically what we're doing now, except that we're not going to have that pressure of having to be open 4, 5, 6 days a week on the truck itself, because the trailer is going to be open for more hours. And now we can focus on marketing and,
Isn't expansion so thrilling? It's like you're taking that next step up in your progression for the business. Obviously, you said that you leased it. That's a smart decision because you want to see if the business will scale. First, you don't want to go all in and it doesn't work, and you've tried so many different avenues and it's just still not hitting, and you're just like stuck with this truck there.
Dude, I couldn't imagine having the pressure of being, mid to late March, pandemic happening, and me having alongside with my partner, having an $80,000, thing that we have to pay or return, or what happens at that point, right? Like with this, the rental, we saw that a lot of people were turning in their trucks because they couldn't fulfill the 2-year agreement, 3-year agreement. We decided to opt in for the 1-year agreement, which is a little bit more expensive, but we kind of knew what we were facing, right? But yeah, we were super close and closing down shop back in March, early April. We're like, dude, like, I don't know what this, like, what if we get the virus and we die? Like at that point, everything was on the table.
Yeah, your
right?
mind's
like,
going everywhere.
Yeah, you're like, you're stressing out. You're only making like a couple bucks every time you open. You're like, wow, like now we got like 4 different emails that all the little events and office lunches that we had planned out that were all closed. That they were no longer going to need us. We just got to spend $2,000 on Foodie Fest, and that ended up being canceled or postponed. So we're like, dude, what are we going to do? Like our source of income, which was lunches, they all got canceled. The $2,000 that we spent are not going to come. We still have not done Foodie Fest. They keep postponing it and setting up our spot. So we're like, dude, what the hell is happening? Like, and then we talked for a while. I was like, maybe we should just consider, keeping the money that we have now, because I don't know what the future holds. I was like, what if by the summer this is still going on? And
little do we know.
Yeah. I was like, dude, I don't know. And then I didn't know how deadly it was. There was some, like Italy, for example. That's when Italy was.
It was like 10% in the beginning in Italy, the death rate.
It was crazy. And I was like, wow. I mean, we're kind of healthy, but like our parents or, relatives, I was like, we need to reconvene. And Diego was like, no, let's kind of keep going. He's always like the more optimistic one. But after a while, I kind of convinced them. I was the one telling him like, hey, we need to see what's going on, right? But after a while, we were like, you know what? Yeah, let's. This is getting kind of scary. So we kind of agreed. We're like, let's see how this week goes. If it doesn't go good, we have a ton of product we need to get rid of. If this is our last week open, let's just do a 2-for-1. At the time, it was just me and him, right? We weren't that busy, so we were able to handle all that stuff at the time. I was like, hey, let's just, let's close down shop. Or at the very least, let's get rid of product. If it goes well, we can buy some more stuff later and then blah, blah. But yeah, we did a 2-for-1 on like a Thursday or something like that. That's when the shutdown was like second week, right? No one was out in the streets. We did a 2-for-1, posted it on Instagram, and then we made, 3 times the amount that we would normally make. We were super busy, just super stressed, like moving around like crazy people. And we were like, wow, like this worked. Like this was actually pretty good. So then we did it again the next day, and then we saw similar results. We're like, wow, maybe we stick around a little bit more. And then we just bought more product, obviously, normal operations. And then every week after that was better and better and better, stabilized a little bit. And people were actually trying to help us out. Like all of our friends were coming by, they were ordering food. The small fan base that we had, they were coming by again because they knew, support local.
Yeah.
And people showed us amazing support. And that got us through May. Events kind of started coming back a little bit more like low key. We had like some very wealthy clients over there and some very wealthy neighborhoods come by to do Cinco de Mayo stuff. And they were like, yeah, people are going to be like socially distanced. And we were like, okay. So then we got there and like, no, what do you socially distance? Yeah, so I was like, all right, I guess. But yeah, no, everyone was taking care of us. Everyone was really like supportive. And then I think midsummer when it got really hot, that's when we started seeing the most success. That's when we started going to Blue Diamond in Durango, and then we started killing it there. Then we started mingling with other food trucks, form relationships. Now it's like when we go and set up somewhere, we usually have someone else with us, or we're joining another group of food trucks. So people, if it's one food truck, people don't want to usually do the drive. But if it's 2 or more, it becomes kind of like the food trucks are there. Mm-hmm. So like something is happening there.
It's like a spectacle almost.
Yeah. It's like, it becomes like a cultural, like little, I don't know. It's just kind of cool what multiple food trucks do to people's like mood. Mm-hmm. And then we have the lights. We have our other food truck friends are just have this amazing, just out of the box, like just amazing food trucks. So they, it's just we all help each other out essentially.
When you pull up to an area where there's multiple food trucks, well, first there's variety, but it seems like there's like a vibe going on around it. You have individuality within each specific food truck, the different variations. You're supporting small businesses. You see you guys in there from the other end working hard. I know it's like 100 whatever degrees inside. Yeah. Everyone's burning up. You can see everyone's passion, and you get to experience it with whoever you're eating with, but also the energy that surrounds the area. You can feel it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fair, right? Like as soon as you see more than one truck, it's like, oh, okay, it's an environment. It has its own little aura to it. And yeah, after that, the whole summer was just good. Then we hired other people to come on board, a cashier, a line cook, and then now we're at that point that we're like, okay, so what are we gonna do? Should we stay doing what we're doing for another year? Which is it's good to keep us afloat, right? But it's not growth. Especially if we're going to do it for another year. I don't know what the pandemic's going to be like. So we're like, okay, like if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right, and we're going to expand. So we're either going to buy a new truck, and we're not going to have this like huge payment that we have to do. That's rent is going towards nothing, or we're going to do something, buy a trailer, do something. I kind of wanted to. I was flirting with the idea of opening up shop somewhere, but we don't have funds to do that. It's pretty expensive, and the whole COVID thing, I wanted to just wait a little bit. So this option of getting the trailer just seemed like the best option to go for the moment.
I have a question. Do Uber Eats and a lot of these food services, are they allowed to order from the food truck and pick up?
Yes.
Oh, that is awesome.
But there is like a caveat to it. You have to give them a location. And back when we had one location, we had Uber Eats running. Granted, it's like they take 30% of your sales. So at the end of the day, you really have like a 10-20% margin.
It's more marketing at that point.
Right. It's just so you can get in front of people's faces and to be more like reachable, right? But yeah, you have to stay at one location. I remember the time that we did move somewhere and we had Uber Eats on. There was someone that ordered Uber Eats and went to our old spot, and we were like, what the hell? And they were like, oh yeah, I guess we have to change it, right? So you have to stay on the phone with someone from overseas for 15 minutes every time you move location. So and if you have more than one platform, you have to do it for each one. So it's kind of a pain. But luckily with this new system that we're going to have, or with this new trailer that we're going to have, it's going to be at one location, and we're going to be able to have all those things. And maybe not have Uber Eats, maybe have like Grubhub or whoever has the best rate. But yeah, we're definitely going to be.
I was gonna say, if you can have that attachment delivery service, I feel like a food truck is just vastly superior than having a shop or like a brick and mortar shop, because the majority of people, well, the trend at least is accelerating towards delivery only. The majority of people don't want to go out and dine unless they're going to a place to drink or to kind of experience something, or like all you can eat sushi or a bar. Whereas most people now, they're going to be working from home. They're going to have the food delivered to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were thinking about doing all the platforms, all the third party platforms out of the commissary kitchen that we park our truck at.
So what is the commissary?
So it's basically a place where you can, wash your truck, refill your water, dump your old water. There's usually almost always a kitchen. We need a kitchen. That's what we prep. That's what we do. The pico de gallo salsas, cook the meats, and all that stuff.
And this houses multiple food trucks?
Yes, it's the hub. It usually fits. I mean, some of the bigger ones have like 50 trucks or something. The one we're at right now has, I don't know, maybe like 25 or something. And it's cool because you get to see other trucks. You ask each other, oh, like, are you going to an event? Or like, so you get to form the little sense of community there. But yeah, that's usually where you do it. There's like giant fridges, there's freezers, all that stuff.
Interesting. I always wondered how the prep went, especially because the space inside the truck is so small. I'm like, man, that must be a pain in the ass trying to be in there 24 hours a day, trying to prep all the food and sauces, and then having to go out there and then cook everything all over again. Yeah.
The thing for the truck that we have, there is enough space to be able to do some of that to that capacity, but we definitely still need the commissary to be able to, make the big scale.
And do the commissary, I'm assuming, charges some sort of rental space to park the truck there and use their facilities?
Yeah, it's somewhere between, like here in the Valley, probably like $600 to $1,000
per month.
Per month, yeah.
Oh, it seems like a pain in the ass. But
yeah, there's a lot of little payments like that you have to do. So the best way to do it is to own the trailer or the truck that you're using. Then you don't have to worry about, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 coming out of your bank account every time. And you still have, obviously insurance and stuff like that. But it's a way, I'd have to say, like probably our truck payment is the same amount of all of our other bills combined. So it's, and if we didn't have that, Jesus, I don't know where. That'd be awesome. We probably would have had 3 trucks by now. Yeah, no, it's pretty expensive.
Are there any food truck businesses out here that have multiple trucks? Are you aware of?
I know of like a Mexican truck that's they. I don't want to be mean, but they got the nickname Roach Coach here in and
that is not something you want.
Yeah, so they have two of them. I don't know if Fuku Burger at some point had two of them, but I don't know. So that's why I was asking people like, what do I need to do to get two? Like, do I need to get another license? I do need to get another health permit, but as far as everything else, like it's already set. So yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if there is another.
I was gonna say now you're creating like a fast food chain for trucks.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
Expansion.
Cousin's Main Lobster. Are you familiar with that? Yeah, they have a ton of trucks apparently.
But they're also a restaurant too, aren't they?
Right, they're everywhere. They're from like California. I thought it was just a trailer or just a food truck until someone told me that there's a bunch of them, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that makes sense because they started out as a restaurant chain and then they expanded because they wanted to go on the go. Whereas you guys have been on the go and then expanding more on the go.
Yeah, our idea was to open a restaurant.
You know, that's the main goal?
Yeah, that's the main one. I want to open something, where we offer beer, just beer and tacos and burritos.
Are you allowed to serve alcohol out of the food truck?
No truck is allowed to sell alcohol, which sucks, right? Because you could sell like Modelos or Micheladas, and people would go crazy for them. But yeah, unfortunately, we can't.
That probably makes sense because the majority of people are probably getting back in their vehicle.
Right, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, either way, everyone at a bar is mostly gonna.
That's true too.
Yeah. So if that's the case, it's a silly rule, but maybe there's some bigger stuff behind that.
This is why you need a lobby group,
right? Yeah, that's
like one of those things that just kind of gets put in the lump sum of legislation just because it's been that way for so long. They don't want to even look at it. But if you're able to get that coalition and put it in front of them, you can open up new ideas. I mean, shit, even Oregon just legalized drugs. I mean, they have a specific...
Everything.
They legalized it because they have an ongoing epidemic of drug use. So they're like, all right, if we can decriminalize it, then we have better avenues towards building addiction facilities and a bunch of these different services. Mm-hmm. But it's something that was just like grouped into the category of like, oh, it's always been this way and we don't want to look at it because it's just been stigmatized as evil, and
that's the way it is. So that's the way it should stay.
It should be.
That was the mentality.
But society is becoming more progressive in general. So that's something that,
especially out there in Oregon.
Oregon, the West Coast is becoming a little bit more progressive. Yeah. Vegas is becoming pretty progressive, which is cool. I think
it was a good change.
I think change is good. If you stay stationary into your old ways, then we're not going to be able to advance society because of that.
I agree. If it wasn't for progressives back in the day, schools would have been segregated by now. Like progressiveness is good, although I think slowing down sometimes, realizing what you have. Sometimes if it's not broken, there's no need to fix it, but sometimes you can improve it. So there's always, you need to find that balance. There's radicalness that can really,
change,
neglect other aspects of your life.
It's kind of like if you go too far, and this is on both sides, if you go too far, the radicalness will take over whatever the mission is, or the integrity of whatever the mission is moving forward.
Right. Yeah. You spread yourself too thin, right? And that's what politics is all about. It's just finding the right balance of moving forward, yet still carrying what you are now. Yeah, that's
exactly what we saw in the election and the polarization. I hope everyone comes a little bit more back to the middle.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I found myself over this last 8 months. It's interesting to see kind of how when you become older, the majority of people, I think that grow up being pretty liberal because the majority of the population usually grows up in the middle or lower class area, so that's the majority of people. But as you become older, you start to realize the different structures and the reasons why some things or the rules are the way that they are. But you also, as you get older, you don't want to be stuck in those old ways either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that 100%. Right now, I feel like I'm more. It's cliche, but some people say that they're center. They're like, I feel like I'm more center right if I'm being what's it called? I'm being really fair with my assessment. I mean, in college, early college, this time 4 years ago, I was like kind of protesting that Bernie didn't get. You know,
Yeah,
like,
same.
I was such a Bernie bro back then. I was like, even then, I mean, now it sounds pretty crazy to say, right? But even then, I was kind of like Googling, like, what is Antifa? Like, is there a meeting in Vegas? Like, 'cause it sounds cool, like anti-fascist. So, I mean, now it's kind of crazy, but yeah, no, it's crazy to see like that transition within myself too. Like, I was very liberal, very like, I saw some stuff about, for example, UNLV, there was like some abortion billboards in front of the dining area. I forgot what that's called, the SU.
Yeah,
there was some abortion stuff, and I went upstairs to a complaint. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like what's that out there?" It's like, yeah. And then like in retrospective, I think about it now. I was like, "Wow, what a snowflake!" Like, like I would call myself a snowflake now, and even like it's just crazy to see transition within yourself, right? Whether I think I would call it growth, not necessarily transition. But yeah, the things you care about, do you cared about then.
Do you think it's
now?
Do you think it's partly due to your experience of becoming a business owner and now going through the LLC application process and all of the jurisdictional rules and ordinances and different things? Do you think that kind of pushed you more into the middle because if you have more of a foundational understanding of how the infrastructures of society work?
My girlfriend thinks that's the case. She's like, "Oh, you started a business, so you think you're more." I was like, "No, I think it's more of like I realized the things that I didn't like just because I had been in the trenches of I would consider have myself been like kind of far left, and I realized what I didn't like about those things. And because of one of the journalism classes I took in college, I started listening to more conservative voices and at least like giving them like a fair listen. People who would consider Joe Rogan part of the right, even though he's not. Or like I did an assignment that said it talked about listening to the other side and then writing a whole assessment on it. And then I did that, and then towards the end, I ended up agreeing. I think it was a comparison between TYT, the Young Turks, and Ben Shapiro. And then I just went over like back and forth. It was like a whole essay. And then at the end, I was like, well, he kind of has a point on this specific. That's when Ben Shapiro was popping off with Ben Shapiro owns blah, blah, blah. And like it's like those viral Facebook videos. So that just kind of gave me a different perspective. And then I realized that even though I was like very upset at conservatives on Facebook, they were posting about some stupid thing or something like that. I was like, hey, And then I had so many friends that are and were conservative. I was like, if I'm friends with them here, like why is it just when I see them digitally or see other people with different points of views, I hate them. And
you resent them for their beliefs.
They like me, I like them. And then I started thinking a little bit more fairly about things, just like more my values that you have to work hard. When you work hard, things come to you. You need to have compassion, but you also need to have, like a sense of security and, value your work. And that's why I consider myself that more towards the center as compared to how other people would see me. Like if you ask anyone on the right, they would say that I'm on the left. And if you ask someone on the left, they would say I'm far right. It's crazy.
I found there's two things to that point. I think there's a big disconnection between what we see in reality, like the conversation me and you're having, and then how our digital self is pronounced because of that. I was just having this conversation with one of my friends the other day. I accidentally unfollowed him on Instagram because he like changed his name and was posting Trump shit and he was a Trump supporter. And I thought he was one of those crazy Trumpers. So I unfollowed him and he messaged me and was like, "Oh, you unfollowed me. Cool." And I was like, "Oh, what? I didn't even realize this." And I went back and looked and accidentally did unfollow him. And I was like, "Oh, my bad. I thought you were like one of those crazy Trumpers." Like I tried to follow him back and he denied my request. And I was like, "Yeah, we've been friends for this long." And he's like, I see how it is. And I'm like, we're here. I'm literally texting you about what happened, but you're still mad about something that happened digitally, even though I'm literally sitting here talking to you about it. It's like, there's like two different personas, and you would think that what's happening in reality would take precedent over what happens digitally. But now the roles have been kind of reversed, where it's like, whatever you say digitally now
the rule of law.
is now the rule of law. That's what you see happening with people getting canceled all the time for things that they said on the internet 10 years ago, even though you see this person in front of you and you're like, he doesn't act anything like that. Like, he's definitely changed, but they're like, no, this was your digital footprint from 10 years ago. And that's by far, that's rule with what it is now.
I'm curious to see what that conversation would have been like if you were to have called them. Because I feel like once you hear someone's voice, someone's honesty behind, what you're trying to convey, that would change something completely as opposed to him reading something. Because the connotation on the something that he might have read from you would have been like, oh, he's full of shit. Or
That's true too.
Or but if you're like, hey man, like immediately, right? Like that, hey man would have been like, okay, like non-threatening. Maybe I'm tripping, But yeah, I think social media, digital world is kind of crazy.
It's crazy, but there's so much promise to marketing yourself, your brand, and also your business. Like, I'm sure you've realized this with Raging Tacos and, being a YouTube creator, that without the accessibility to thousands or tens of thousands of people, like, you weren't able to get your message out and to have people understand who you are. So there's it's probably the biggest double-edged sword out there in terms of things happening in society right now. It's like, I hate to use it because people misunderstand what I'm saying, but I love to use it because then people can also understand what I'm about.
Honestly, I don't like to complain too much about it because I think it is absolutely necessary for any bit of success that I've had in my life. Like, just absolutely, like, just when it came to, I don't know, maybe like flirting with my girlfriend 6 years ago, or like adding her on Facebook, or I mean, we met it before that, but, or, learning how to shoot videos, learning what camera to buy. I grew up a single mom, single child, essentially. I have a sister, but I didn't grow up with her. So I just had to teach myself a ton of things. I know for all the bad things that are happening, Neuralink or whatever you think that technology might take place into a negative sense, I think there's just as much of positive to it. Being able to FaceTime your grandma when she's in the hospital or someone across the globe, like that to me is indispensable. Being able to have that type of knowledge and be able to teach yourself and, hopefully maybe, I don't know, someone that's watching a YouTube or Twitter video is influenced to becoming a scientist, and that person later on fixes something that's wrong with the world. Or, yeah, I mean, just terrible things, doxing people, cancel culture, all that stuff is atrocious. But I wouldn't for a second like a world without technology.
Yeah, we'd be stuck in a world of conservatism.
Yeah, just everyone, just believing what you see on the newspaper, right? Like something, even that's technology, right? Mm-hmm. So who knows? Technology itself, TV was probably bad at some point, right? Oh, you're just watching TV, listening to what that guy's saying, but now it's like, oh, you're just listening to everything you see on Instagram or Twitter. It's just another form of it.
I remember reading somewhere that somebody was saying 20 years from now, we're going to look at the internet as we do look at fast food nowadays, like how detrimental it is to your health, like taking an abundance of it. Mm-hmm. Because how often do you get stuck on not even just social media, but you just keep pulling your phone out and having to like consume information. Like it's like a consumption overload in terms of information. And now we see in America right now, it's an overconsumption of food. That's why heart attacks and coronary heart disease are the number one killers, more than cigarettes and any other disease out here. It's the overconsumption of food. Eventually it's going to be the overconsumption of information. What stems from that? I don't know. It seems like depression and suicide is like kind of a leading thing, but like the long-term effects, we're in such the infancy of this innovation curve that it's really hard to know what will happen from it.
Something that I find interesting is that you can find with that same phone can potentially be causing you so much damage. You can find workout videos, or you can find challenges, and you can find ways to improve yourself. But we don't, right? We choose the easiest, the what releases the most serotonin level for that second until you scroll an inch more and then you see something else that does the same thing. But I'd like to get your point of view on like, what do you think is this, how Apple started incorporating this your screen time that you've had so far. It's like this, I think every Sunday I get a notification that says this time you've been on your phone, and I always get like 8 hours. I don't know if I'm actually using it for 8 hours or if it's like when I'm playing music on the side.
That adds to it, yeah, because that's the same with podcasts for me.
Okay, yeah, I have like, maybe like a podcast that I'm listening to, and let's say it's Joe Rogan, and I have it there while I'm washing dishes, and it's like, does that contribute? I didn't know that. But yeah, Apple is kind of contributing to doing the opposite, right? To working against that, to working against, being addicted to something. But what do you think their purpose is behind that? Do you think they're saving face? Because it's in their best interest for people to be using the technology, right? So what do you think is this kind of like, what's their purpose behind that?
Apple actually does a pretty good job in terms of privacy for being a software company and hardware too. They're the first technology company to stand up and not allow the government to insert backdoors into their technology, and they're pretty vocal about it. So I think they do have the consumer's mental health in mind, because if their customers are deteriorating at a faster rate, then they're probably going to lose the dollars. So I'm sure there's a few motivations behind it, but the recognition of what it's doing to your health, I think, is why they do it. And so that you could be aware on it. And I'm not sure if there's like more features on it where you can, like, I know parents actually limit their children's screen time through like some backware software where they can do that. But I know personally, when I see it and I see that it's up, the screen time, I'm like, fuck, man, this is not good. This is not good. Like the other day, it was like 5.5 hours. And before I started the podcast, it was like 2 hours. And now I'm just like, God, I'm stuck in this virtual world. I'm wasting my mind.
You're like dieting, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that it? It's like, oh, you only have like, if you limit yourself to like, let's say 4 hours a day, you can just, you're at 3:30 already and it's midday. You're like, damn it.
You're like, fuck yeah. You want to have the timer on there. But at the same time, I think a lot of people realize the real potential of having limitless information. It just becomes more of a yin and yang, a give or take mentality behind it. So I don't think Apple has harmful intent of putting that there. I think they do have the users in mind because of the rise in suicide and depression and anxiety because of this. But it still ends up being us, the one who has to determine
to make that decision
because of it. But you just become so caught up in what's happening that you have to pull yourself away.
Yeah, no, I think it's crazy. I always have to think of bottom line, right? I don't quite believe that they're doing it fully out of the kindness of their heart, especially now because Apple, as far as I know, they're going to make this transition into their hardware is coming to an end, right? The craze for the new iPhone is not as it was like 5 years ago. So what they're doing, as far as I know, is transitioning more into some kind of like subscription-based stuff, like their Apple series or maybe something like Netflix originals, but they're going to have, I think, Apple originals or some kind of, I don't know, maybe a way to keep you more engaged in a more month-to-month basis that you have to have a subscription with them, because the Mac that I have now is a powerful beast, and it's probably going to be a powerful beast for the next 5 years. The phone that I have now, even though it's cracked, it works amazing. The camera is great. So unless I break it, I'm not going to need to find another one until way later on. So the money that they're making is no longer going to be on hardware. It's going to be on software. And that being software, it's going to be like Netflix. Are you still watching? Autoplay. It's going to be all those things, all those features like TikTok. That's going to transition. I think that's where Apple's going, unless they get into a different field to get their money from. And then at that point, Apple is not going to benefit whatsoever from having people back away. But I think them doing this, and this is just my theory, I think them giving you those signals of like, hey, you might be watching too much, like it's just like them virtue signaling and saying like, we care about you. You are spending a lot of time, but they know we're not going to stop. I see those 8 hours every single Sunday, and I think about it. It makes me feel bad. I just don't make the moves. And I think I'm one of those people that are more susceptible to not do those things anymore, like to step away from that and make a change in my life. Other people I maybe wouldn't care as much. I think I would. I don't know. But it doesn't make a difference in my life.
It's impossible to get away, especially if you're a business owner nowadays.
Right. And I don't really like, I don't care because I know that the stuff, 80% of the stuff I'm doing on my phone are beneficiary towards my life. So
yeah, you're making active engagement towards progression and whatever the case is. And that makes sense because ever since I started podcasts, my screen time is like doubled or even tripled at times, but it's also the similarity is that I'm promoting this. The only way I could promote this is digitally. Without the phone, I'm fucked. Like you can't listen to this. Like 80% of podcast consumption's through a smartphone. And
that's cool.
And Apple Podcasts has like over 50% domination on the market. So it's like they know. And that's, speaking of the subscription model, I think a lot of people are fearful that Apple Podcasts is eventually going to put a gate around the podcast and make you charge. Like that's kind of like how Spotify took Joe Rogan. There's a guy, do you know who Adam Curry is?
Yeah,
he's called the Podfather. He had the first podcast in like the mid 2000s. He's creating the podcast index 2.0, and he's trying to decentralize podcasts because podcasts, it's all put on an RSS feed and then you distribute it. So it's basically decentralized in nature. But they think now with like Spotify having Joe Rogan and Kim Kardashian and Michelle Obama, and they're exclusive to that platform.
Really? I thought it was just Rogan. I wasn't aware.
Yeah. So they have those. I don't know if Kim started hers yet, but Michelle Obama has hers, and those are all native to Spotify. They see Apple starting to do the same, and podcast. They have such a dominant market cap over podcasting that they fear they're going to start putting gates around it and a lot of these. So he's trying to create an open platform for podcasts, and yeah, that speaks to like Apple's probably going down that road. Like they probably see that transition, and that's just multiple things. Like Apple has the dominant Apple iStore. What is it? The App Store, where they charge those programs 30% of their profits, and now they were getting bad PR. That's when Fortnite came out and Epic, I think it's Epic Games, came out against them because they're taking all their profits and they try to build like backdoors around that. Now they say if your profits are under $1 million, then you only have to pay Apple 15%. But then everyone's like, this is just a virtue signal because the majority of the apps are making over $1 million. Oh, wow. So it's not really changing anything, right? If you're Epic Games and you're profiting billions of dollars off of your app,
you're still paying the same amount.
Yeah, it's like you're paying the same amount. So you're just literally virtue signaling.
It's that friction between, what the market is willing to bear versus if you can just take your platform somewhere else and use something else. Dude, a fun fact about Joe Rogan and his Spotify deal. Dude, this is pretty crazy. So I've always thought to myself that I have some kind of psychic abilities. I joke around about that. I'm not really serious. But one of those, a night that we were just washing dishes and then Diego was cleaning the truck, I walk up to the truck carrying all this stuff, and I was sick and tired of every time I'm listening to Joe Rogan. I do it on YouTube because I like watching the stuff. But when I put my phone in my pocket and then I have to walk, and then my pockets are wet or something, it presses the screen. So then it moves to the next video or it does something. Oh. And then when I got back, I was tired of it. I was like, Diego, you know what? I was like, it'd be so nice if Joe Rogan's podcast was like, the video format was on like Spotify. This was like a week before. I was like, it's so stupid. Like what? Or YouTube if I lock my screen, it goes away. It goes
away, yeah.
And if I tap something else, I have to just leave it like this. And then he's like, yeah, like he didn't get it, right? And then like 3 or 4 days later, something like that, I saw that he put that Instagram post, sent it to him. I was like, I can't make this shit up. Like this is crazy.
Literally, yeah. The podcast game is taking over. I think it's tapped into something that society's been missing for so long, right? Like long form conversations. We've been sitting here talking for an hour and 8 minutes. And before technology kind of came in and inserted itself into society, people were having long form conversations naturally because there wasn't software and all these different things to be distracted by. So we would sit here without podcasts and have a 2-hour conversation about probably the same exact things. But then the smartphones came in and they basically were like literally putting themselves in front of you, right? A screen right in between me and you. And they're like, instead of having this conversation, now you get little 15-second sound bites or 280 character limits on what a person can communicate. So podcast is kind of bringing that back now, and we can have this conversation, and other people can come in and
like tune in
and listen to these intimate conversations based off of whatever your platform is. So I think that's why they're starting to blow up, and why a bunch of these different companies are kind of pouring in billions of dollars into the industry, because as society progresses, human connection becomes more integrated and more specialized within each other. It's interesting. And that's the same thing that you do, with human communication like this. And that's why food has always been so popular. I had a woman on she was a TV journalist, and now she's a chef. Her name's Lorraine Moss. And she said that she used to storytell through the TV broadcast, but now she tells stories through food, because that's a way to connect with somebody. Is like the way that something tastes. It's kind of like a combination of their history growing up and like the different influences that have affected their lives.
It's very poetic. I wish I could get that poetic about our tacos. But even though I feel like there is something to it, right? Like you taste someone's food that they made for you, and I would never serve anything that I don't like, right? So I feel like that there is a little bit of a sense of that. No, but that's cool. I actually really enjoy talking to people. And not like I consider myself a great talker or anything like that, but just having that any kind of conversation for a while after I'm done, I'm like, okay, like I feel relaxed now. Now I feel like I can watch TV, now I feel like I can do anything else because I had that connection with, and I mean long form. I hate like small talk.
Yeah, it's meaningful. You feel like you're gaining something out of it. And even if you didn't gain some sort of knowledge, like in terms of learning some sort of educational discipline, you're learning about that person, and you're gaining this connectionness of chemistry that eventually down the road you could cash in on, or you can form something together and kind of bridge ideas, which is so much more important. Especially with an interconnected society where what you know will put you somewhere, but who you know is what's going to take you farthest.
Right. Do you think that's something that we have ingrained in us? Talking,
yes. Social creatures at our most evolutionary level, I think, is something that we're forever kind of building on. I think the COVID pandemics kind of emphasized that, whereas when we're all in this lockdown for, 60 days or 65 days or whatever it was, people were going absolutely insane because they were like, even having a Zoom call or connecting on FaceTime, it's not the same as having somebody in the room with you, connecting and feeling like sharing those energies and wavelengths and body cues and social cues and language. There's so much that's missed through technology, and I think that's just been more exacerbated. And now you see suicide rates are up like 200% this year.
I keep hearing about that. I just don't like to think that.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation, and that's all stemming from our social ideals and our social inequities, I guess you would say, between how we view ourselves and how we communicate with others.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking with like you said, FaceTime doesn't always hold that same value of a conversation. I love FaceTime. Like when I call people, they hate me because I FaceTime them. It's 100. I want to know what, I mean, aside from you're doing something that I'm not supposed to see, or something secretive, or maybe you're taking a shit or something. Yeah. Like, I always want to see who I'm talking to. Like if I answer someone's phone call, I either don't answer because I'm not ready or something, but I always want to see people. Like that's the future, right? When you think of the supersonics, like the kind of the cartoons with the technology, there was always FaceTime calls, and people back then were like, "Oh, that's the future," or whatever. But I love that piece of technology, even though you don't really get to see everyone's. There's a little bit of lag. You don't get to feel their warmth or their vibrations. You still get to see their. It's much better than a text or a phone call, in my opinion.
I agree. I'm a big FaceTimer as well. And it's funny when you'll FaceTime somebody, they'll hang up and then text you like literally 5 seconds later. And they're like, why are you FaceTiming me? Or did you call? And you're like, yeah, because I'm trying to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like some people think that's invading someone's privacy, but as a matter of fact, if we're going to talk, let's see each other.
Yeah. I hate when you know, I do these interviews and conversations, but I've done 2 podcasts on somebody else's show now where we hop on Zoom and they don't want to have the screen up. And I'm like, it takes away from the conversation because I can't read when I should interject or your social cues. Like, are you smiling?
Yeah, maybe someone's like telling you something and they're not really engaged. So you just kind of, it just helps communicate better, in my opinion. Even earlier today, I was like, should I text Jake or should I?
Yeah, you called me.
Yeah,
you literally called me right before this.
I'm gonna be talking with him for a long time. Might as well call him now, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because we don't know each other more, I would have FaceTimed you at that point. I would have been like, hey man, I'm with the doctors.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like when you go out and you hang out with people, you go there to be with them. You know, you want to experience their energies. Why would you not want to experience that all the time? You spend all this money, you know, you go out to a bar or something like that, and you spend hundreds of dollars to spend an hour, 2 hours with this person where you could do the same thing similar for free through a phone. And just like trying to find these different ways of connection. It's like you want to kind of experience all of them because people act differently throughout all these various communicative patterns and ways.
Yeah. So you said earlier when you talk to someone, you get to know like a little bit about them, but also you get to understand yourself a little bit more because it's, let's say you might say something that I've never heard before, and the way that I react to it on real time is the way that if I hadn't heard it before, I had never reacted to it. So the way, you know, it's kind of like a bouncing back and forth, right? You're bouncing the ball and then you're kind of learning new moves as you go because if something engages in your brain and just like things that part of your brain that hasn't thought of that way before. So I think it's beautiful speaking with people. And to the same sense, I hate like boring conversations or like dinners where you're not allowed to talk as much or where you don't know people, or not necessarily you don't know people, that just like you're not part of that conversation or that group. Oh man, I dread it so much.
It's a superficial conversation is something that I've never really engaged in that much. That was kind of the reason to start this. I've realized throughout my life, and maybe relate to this as well, is the majority of my conversations throughout life always lasted like 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours with people. I never really enjoyed those like surface level conversations. I just chose not to partake in it. Like whenever somebody talks about the weather, I just don't respond. I don't respond. I'm like, I choose not to engage with this because I know exactly where this conversation's going and it's going absolutely nowhere. Yeah. It's going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'm guilty of that just because I have to ask those like silly, like, you know, you're kind of testing the waters, right? So like, oh, do you have any kids? Oh, okay. Just by the way someone responds to those like boring questions, you immediately know whether they're willing to engage in a deeper, more meaningful conversation. So, I mean, I'm guilty. I ask about the weather, then someone talks about where they're from, and you're like, okay, yeah, is it cold over there? Yeah, it's cold. Yeah, man, I like snowboarding. And then as soon as they drop in like a different topic, you're like, okay, like we can go further into this like relationship.
It's strange understanding how to communicate with people. There's multiple ways to do it. Obviously, you can continue to ask more conversations. I've learned to ask a lot of whats and whys because that's not just a simple yes or no. It's a little bit more open-ended question. So now they have to put thought behind how they're responding.
They can't dismiss you as easily. And then also the way that they respond, you want to try to dissect 2 or 3 different nouns or the points of emphasis in that conversation. And then you try to be creative and construct it to whatever you want to digress into the next line. That's kind of like my thinking whenever I'm having a conversation like this, or just in general. It's like, all right, do I want to pivot to another conversation? How do I do it? Are they responding well? Is their body language open and accessible? That's it. What did you major in?
I was a kinesiology major.
Kinesiology, so
yeah, like nothing that has to do with this at all.
That's the beauty of these kinds of things. Like anyone can, and anyone who kind of has it within them can do it, right? Like that's why I love language and I love communication. I love what different symbols mean. So I was born in Mexico, and I came here when I was 10. So I was like a super immigrant, whatever. I didn't speak a lick of English. I knew red, green, blue. That's about it, right? Like 4 or 5 colors, and then I knew how to count till 10. And I was I was deprived from having these types of conversations growing up. The people that I could talk to was my mom. My mom and I have an awesome relationship, but we just couldn't, we couldn't. I've always wanted to ask people like what they thought about aliens or what they thought about ghosts and stuff like that. But the language barrier, I either talked to people that weren't interested in it, so we just, play soccer or something like that, or I just couldn't get myself to fully articulate what my thoughts are. Even now, I feel like I have a specific type of barrier that I think of a concept, I just I can't reach it without, stopping and making it obvious. But I just feel so much more like liberated once I got into college and I got to obviously meet a ton of people, a ton of connections. That's when I was like, okay, so I'm going to go with this guy to get my conspiracy fix. And I'm going to go with this, with my friend over here, like she's got good gossip, or, oh, my friend over here talks about sports. So you get to just like,
you pick and choose.
Stimulate, different sections. So now I feel like I can, as long as someone's willing to talk, we can go at it, and it's amazing.
And the important idea behind that thinking is being curious. That's important to being a successful food truck owner, a successful podcaster, even just like a successful like husband or girlfriend. The longer you remain curious about things, the more willing you are to learn and to be educated. And if you're consistently learning throughout life, then you'll never digress into this just like staring at your phone for 8 hours doing nothing, right? Like you're okay with having an 8-hour screen time because you're spending quality time on there learning about things. You're not just endlessly cycling through Instagram, although we do sometimes, and we're guilty of it. But for the majority of the time, you have a purpose being on there, and it's because you're curious and you want to learn more about whatever the specific niches or nuance or anything like that. So being curious about other people as well. That's like the main thesis behind having this show. I wanted to learn about food trucks. I wanted to learn about Must Try Vegas, and more specifically, I want to learn about you. That's why it's called the guest list. It's literally the person sitting across from me, because I think it's important to understand who runs the business, right? Like when people associate Tesla, when they think of Tesla, the second idea you're thinking immediately after that is Elon Musk.
It's Elon, yeah.
He's forever tied to it because of his personality, and people know him now, and people know how he thinks because of how often he's in the news for his crazy meme lord things that he does, or smokes weed on Joe Rogan, or whatever the case is. But this is obviously a public company, but when he smoked weed, the stock tanked 10%. And it's like, why? Like the company's still operating exactly the same. It's because he is a direct correlation or a direct reflection of his business. And I think
more so than
anybody else, and that transitions down to even smaller levels like myself or you, people. And I think people want to hear that and see that that's not just, Raging Tacos food truck is now at the park from 10 to 4. People are interested to understand the ideologies and the reasoning and the culture behind the tacos.
Yeah. So that begs the question, like, how big do you think Tesla would be if it wasn't for Elon?
I don't think it would be nearly as far, He has such that like enamoring personality. People just love him. I'm actually a big Tesla, big Elon Musk fan. He just became the second richest person in the world yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, second, 127 billion. People hate him because, eat the rich or whatever. But I think the crazy part of that is that SpaceX is going to end up being worth more than Tesla will. So I think Elon Musk will end up being the first trillionaire in the world if it's not Satoshi Nakamoto.
That's the creator of
Bitcoin, right? The pseudo-anonymous creator. No one knows who it is, but that his wallet has their wallet has 1.2 million Bitcoin in it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's why I would say it's going to be a race between Satoshi and Elon to be the first trillionaire.
What's his name?
Jeff Bezos. No, I think both of Elon Musk's businesses translate or scale outwards just beyond the United States, right? Like Tesla is setting up shops in China, and they just opened a gigafactory in Germany. SpaceX is aerospace, transportation, and that'll be used not just for America. They just shipped up, forget what country. The most recent launch they had a passenger from another country that's paid for by their country. So he has both companies that are that will scale outside of the US or even outside of the planet. Whereas Amazon's kind of confined to just America because Alibaba's in China. There's like an Amazon version in Africa. I forget what the company's called. So they're kind of limited
There's
in this
competition on that.
Yeah, there's
I
competition.
See. Wow. No, that makes. Do you know what happened with Elon when they were locking down?
Yeah, he fought against it.
Yeah, he had like a boss move, right? It was like, come close it or come arrest me or something like that. I was like, you're crazy.
Yeah,
man.
he would never do it. He threatened to leave California as well.
I thought that was in effect. Is that not happening? I really don't know.
The headquarters are still there in
going to Texas.
Yeah, San Paulo or something. He's opening up a gigafactory there. I think eventually he's going to move down there.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to move down there.
Yeah, Joe Rogan started that whole thing.
Yeah.
It's the JRE effect.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I actually want to visit there. I've only been to like Dallas or something, but man, that place looks cool. Just like seeing how many people are going there and the fact that everyone's packing, so everyone's nice because you don't want to. You're not gonna piss anyone off, Everyone's like
pull the mic a little closer to you.
Yeah, sorry. Good. Yeah, everyone's more than capable, right?
And that just speaks volumes to where society is progressing. A lot of the majority of the population, I think, is eventually going to. I won't say the majority, but the people who have some sort of substance in society, whether it's a business owner or influencer or something like that, they're all migrating out of the metropolis areas and into rural areas because everything's becoming on the go. Food trucks, podcasts, remote working from home, digitization of assets and different things of that nature. People are realizing that you don't have to be stuck to just one area. You can be out, open, and kind of resort back to this like 50s mentality of having land and open area to express yourself and not just be stacked on top of each other kind of like New York is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess because we're so interconnected with technology, there's no need to actually be as close to what's everything. And I think, who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but probably Post Malone had an influence on Joe Rogan. You know how he was on his podcast not very long ago, and he lives in Utah, and that's kind of like not where you would think that he would live in. And I feel like after that, he just kind of like, okay, he's doing it. I have friends over here in Texas. So that's when he made the move. But I have a question for you, since we're talking about, obviously, I would say Elon was, I don't know where he falls in politically, but Joe Rogan's kind of like on the left. At least he claims he is. And other people that are leaving, they're doing California exit. I think there's a word for that. Or like New York. Yeah. New York, they're all leaving. They're going towards like a little bit more south. So the liberals or expatriates of liberal states are leaving to a more red areas. What do you think happens if, like, let's say, people are giving talks about civil war and blah, blah, like little rumors. If that were to happen, let's say there was no war. Let's just say things were separated between conservatives. Let's say, all right, liberals, you guys take the West Coast from, like New Mexico. And
just divide it.
Yeah. And then, conservatives stay on a specific area. What do you think happens, like geopolitically speaking, with like economies, social issues? Like, because I think the right is kind of in this position that they are socially, with a lot of topics, are more so on the old school, the old school left, and the left is a little bit more further to the left.
Yeah, Dave Rubin actually said this. Do you know who Dave Rubin is?
I know
the Rubin Report. He has like a very millions of downloads.
Is he part of the IDW?
Yeah, he is a part of the intellectual dark web. Somebody I listened to. He was defined as what's called a classic liberal, which was like, he's a gay, married, white man, lived in Cali. I think he still does live out there. So he respects social liberties and freedom, pro-abortion and, a social safety net and things like that. But he also wants a limited government as well. And that's kind of like where I fall as well. And it seems like a lot of people do. But he was saying now that the left is pushed so far that way into socialism and tying that even into Antifa and these different movements, that now what was a classic liberal is now considered a conservative right mentality because of that. So that's
which is, I think, kind of like where I fall into. If I say something about socialism, which whatever, but if I say something like if I negative, or if I don't agree, or if I question anything, all of a sudden, I don't really post on it on social media like that, just because people are gonna go after you, and it's people that like you and care about you, and like they're really good friends with you. All of a sudden, they're gonna think that they don't like you because they think you're threatening them. Yeah, that's pretty scary. I keep my thoughts and opinions to myself.
Yeah, it's a weird time. Something I've noticed though is I think the majority of Americans have more similarities than we do differences. But the radicals are the ones who get attention because of mainstream media. And
they're the loudest.
Yeah, they're the loudest, and they get the numbers and the views and can make money for them. But the majority of us have much more similarities and differences, and even having multiple political candidates, and even Mike Naft, who holds Clark County Commission position.
You interviewed him, right?
I interviewed his opponent, and I had Dr. Erica Smith, who was running for state assembly.
That's so cool. Yeah.
They even had a lot of similarities. Michael Naft and Michael Thomas, who were running against each other, had a lot more similarities than they did differences. So it made me realize that the news purposely portrays the differences on like a magnifying scale, because that's the only few differences that they have. You know, they wouldn't get the views if it's like, oh, they agree on this, this, and this. Like, then it's like, well, what's the fucking point of having an election and running the differences behind it? So it's, yeah.
What's crazy is that if they were to form an allegiance, that would be the most productive type of like government or body of government that you can think of, right? Because those differences would get worked out somewhere. There'll be some kind of like agreements to meet somewhere in the middle. But yeah, no, it's crazy that there's people out there like those differences per se are not as big, or they have some social pressure within. So like maybe you had them here or it was a FaceTime, but when you talk to them, you knew that they were people of character, they had values, and everyone wants what's right, always, right? Everyone wants happiness, essentially. That's like bottom line, everyone wants happiness for everyone. That their methods in attaining those are what's different. But then when you put a camera in front of someone and then you tell them you add pressure of like the right or the left, that's when you start seeing people part ways into
camps.
Into camps. And then no matter what, like if I were to run with the Democratic Party, but I think that people carrying guns is maybe not terrible, or maybe, that's it. I'm no longer part of that tribe.
Yeah, they want the fall in line, listen to everything, abide by our rules and nothing else.
So I think that's a phenomenon that's happening right now. It's setting people aside. Right? I mean, I know a lot of like people on the left that carry guns and they like guns, whatever. But sometimes those people are kind of put to the side, and I feel like the right kind of embraces those people that have been forgotten, I guess.
The right it embraces individuality, whereas the left, it's more of kind of like a hornet's nest, like groupthink. And what I had realized, and this kind of stuck out to me, is when I started the podcast, I started doing research into political views and what's egalitarianism and socialism and progressivism and all these other different isms. I went on to YouTube and podcasts, and I started looking for public figures that are vocal, non-political figures, so they don't hold a political position, but they're commentators, or I forget what the other word is for it, pundits, on both sides to listen to and kind of hear their opinions. The right has hundreds, if not thousands of them, but the left, it's all organizations. There's no individual pundits. It's like NPR and what's the other one, The Hill, and some of these other ones. It's all groupthinks. It's all things that are produced through multiple cohesive units, whereas the right is they embrace individuals speaking out and talking what their specifics are. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the right, you have Scott Adams and Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager and Candace Owens, and the list just goes on and on and on and on. But then when you go to the left, it's like Young Turks, multiple people, NPR, a huge organization. And there's some of the other ones that are in there. And I went out and tried to ask multiple people who identify as like far liberals for different people to listen to. And all they can name off was just organizations.
There's not one that I can think of either. There's one individual that strictly carries the left. Like that's the person. If you think of Ben Shapiro, if you're on the left, you think he's, you know, a Nazi, whatever, but he's the guy that represents, or one of the many, like Steven Crowder, people like that are representatives of, you know, exactly what. But then you go on the left, and you can think of what, like Don Lemon, or people like that are more so actors rather than than people who truly believe in what they're about. You see a lot of hypocrisy there. So that's the reason why I turned into more so of listening to both sides. I wouldn't call myself part of the right. Is that I had one of my classes. It was propaganda and communications, or it was like a high 400 level class at UNLV. And the professor was at the time, he was the head of the communications department. His name, Dr. something, I forget, it's passing by. This doctor, he said that he was very controversial. He had like an FBI file this thick or whatever, like on his initial introduction with us. So he just said that the FBI had looked into him, and people used to call him a socialist and blah, blah. And at the time I was like, well, you seem like a normal guy, whatever. Like, I don't think, I really didn't know what socialism was. But at the time, that's when I was a Bernie bro. I had my little, my pin and stuff like that when I went voting for him.
You're just a part of the hive.
Yeah, I was in there. And because of that class, we read like 2 different books that had the different perspectives about U.S. history, right? So how the 4th of July get started. It got started because the new immigrants were getting here, and they were kind of changing the culture. So they wanted everyone to kind of like assimilate and stuff like that, and like have a sense of patriotism to make sure that they don't turn against us in the future. At least that's what the reading said. There was other things about history books not even considering the idea that other non-white settlers could have been in the Americas before they got here, and they were showing the Olmecs sculptures that they look like more African Americans rather than Native Americans. And there was like a lot of theories like that, and just talk about conspiracies essentially, right? And about the propaganda that the U.S. brings. So the whole thing was very anti-American, and that class itself switched me, I would say, to the other side, but not really to the other side. It just kind of gave me a perspective like, wow, this guy is not good. You know, this guy, he's like, yeah, people call me a communist and blah, 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 and it's not bad. It's like, we've never tried it here in the U.S. And in my head, I'm like, I don't think it would work. I mean, it hasn't worked anywhere else. I love capitalism. He would say things. So he was a really smart guy. So every time you would ask a question, he would kind of like pivot the question and have someone else answer it so that he wouldn't have to answer it. And that's completely opened my eyes for me. I was like, wow, this is not what I want.
I think the capitalist structure, I think, is the best economic model we can have in today's society, because it does embrace individuality and privatization and the ability to go and create something out of nothing. This does not happen in places like China and North Korea and Russia and a bunch of these more authoritarian regimes that have embraced communism or socialism. Mm-hmm. So without that, we wouldn't be able to push progressivism, and you can be progressive and you can also be conservative at the same time. You know, it sounds like it's a little counterintuitive, but there are ways to have small government, but also push society forward. And I don't think you could do that outside of the capitalist model, because competition is what breeds innovation.
What drives, right?
Yeah, it's what drives. It makes, even if it is a friendly competition, you know, even if it's like when you're playing football or whatever, you're on a high school sports team and you and your buddy are always in an active competitive spirit to get more catches or score more goals or be the starter. You know, so competition isn't necessarily like whoever loses dies. There's so many different forms of it, and that just makes people better in whatever discipline or sector or whatever that you're trying to become the best at. And with those, I guess that's what divides people so much and why they're so against socialism, is because they see what it's done to society. And, you know, we are a much different, we're in a way different age than before, where democratic socialism could work. I don't know. It's never been implemented, but why go against something that has consistently has a positive track record to just bring new innovation and technology to society.
Yeah, I think people want to take a step back and, right, it's that question that was my rationale too. It could work. It's like, I have always agreed that the United States is the best country that has ever existed from the beginning, even when I was on the left. And I was like, this country is so great. If we try socialism, we would actually make it work. That was my rationale before. I was like, it's not as bad as, like, we're not as corrupt as other places. I don't think that way anymore. I feel like we're human. Temptation always wins, at the bottom line. But there's always, I think what we need to do is find a balance, right? The people want to change things because people that want to change things see capitalism and they see greed. And they see that there's people suffering, so that means that there's other people that are making them suffer. And although that may be true in a lot of cases, and maybe the CEO doesn't deserve $1 billion, or maybe he does, but the thing is, they only focus on those negative things without often acknowledging that because of those things, they're even allowed to have those thoughts. Like the fact that you can even go out and protest, or the fact that you can post something without, a family member going missing or something like that. That's an amazing freedom. So it's a balance of that. It's right. It's capitalism and, the freedoms that we have here. And then the people on the other side focus on the people on the left saying like, oh, you just want to take down the whole thing. And then we just don't, there's a lack of communication. People think some people are greedy and racist, and because the people on this side think you guys are lazy and you guys are anarchists, but the reality is somewhere in the middle.
And it's weird that there's that lack of communication, although we're in a day of age where there's infinite leverage in terms of communication, and there's more on-ramps and off-ramps that are being created every year because of it. So maybe we're just now in the level of society where there's too many options, and so we kind of consolidate to 2 or 3. I know there's a phenomenon, I forget what the name is, but it's like when a human's given too many options, then they don't know how to process it. That's like with Netflix, right? It's like when you have 3 options, you're like, okay, it's easy to scale what's probably the best, what's the worst. But when you're giving 300 options, now your evaluation metric is different, because now you're like, oh, why is this here? Why is that there? Why does this one have 5.5 stars? Why does this have 4.5 stars? But are the star ratings right? Like who's rating these? Who's given this rating system? There's just too much that goes into that decision making, and then you just end up kind of just in a state of peril, I guess.
Yeah, there's information overload, right? But yeah, I think an awesome exercise that everyone should do is be exposed to the other side. Whether it's
without a bias.
Yeah, without like just sitting down. I've actually plugged conservative outlets to some of my friends, and they're like, oh, I agree with it, but I just hate that one person, so I can't really listen to them for that long. And I accept that, but at least people gave it a try. But I think everyone should do it. For example, with this race riots that were happening recently, I was like, man, like people that were affluent. Would be cool if there's a way that you can have them grow up somewhere else, right? And then people that hate cops, it's like you should take a ride along with them and see, they go to a call. There's a mom that just killed a kid is in a garbage bag in the trash can. Then there's like a roommate that just shot his roommate with the shotgun on his head, and they have to walk in and see all those things. So yeah, they're gonna be jumpy by the time they get somewhere. But we just don't see. We don't have empathy. We don't really understand the other people's perspective.
That's important.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing when it comes to like social, what's it called, like the indifferences that we have, the clashes. It's always comes out to that, in my opinion, right? So I decided to write on the other side of the aisle for once, and then I realized that okay, I have more in common with this point of view than I ever thought. So now I'm like kind of in this weird middle where I think most people are, right? If you talk to people, like most of my friends are right in the middle, even though they claim to be on one side or the other. But yeah, it's interesting.
So social pressures. It sounds like your evaluation metrics have changed over time. I think that's what's important, and that's being able to evaluate a situation without having an impartial bias with your emotions. That's how you build success, and that's how you can weed out who's a pretender and who's a winner. It seems like you've been able to do that, which is good.
I wish there was a safe landscape to discuss this ideas aside from, obviously I've listened to your podcast before. I know kind of where you stand. I know how comfortable I could be sharing those ideas. But out in the open on the reg, it could be dangerous sometimes. But I always have this type of way of processing this is my intentions are pure, and you can kind of see through me. You see that I don't really bullshit, and I'm kind of I would say I'm one of the good guys, right? I mean well. I never mean any harm to people. Honesty, I think honesty always wins, but it's still pretty dangerous to be honest sometimes.
It sucks that way. That's the way that we're going. But the only thing you could do is just hunker down, keep pitching the gospel, of honesty, and just wait for the wave to come to overtake it. That's society is always going in waves. Maybe they say that this is the most polarizing time in American history. I highly doubt it. I bet you there's probably been just as many polarizing eras through different presidencies and the Civil War and Revolutionary and everything like that. Eventually the pendulum will swing the other way. And if you keep pitching what you believe in, eventually it will overtake whatever society is doing.
Yeah, no, I just, the fact that you have to say whether you're right or left is pretty annoying.
It's terrible. I say I'm a political observer. That's kind of how I view. I'm registered as no NP, no party. I say I'm observing, and I give my opinion based off of. Obviously, it's my opinion. I try to go off of fact for the most part, but I also try to take in both sides and understand the underlying things of why people are acting the way that they do, and are they actually meaning it. And that was the big polarizing thing of Trump, is that, without going in too much detail before we get out of here, he's like a political comedian. What he's saying isn't always exactly what he means, because he's always redirecting it in a different direction. That's why a lot of people voted for him, is because they're like, I don't care what the person is doing. The bottom line is what I care about. And he had some favorable policies on both sides, and some people fail to admit it. But in terms of leadership, that's where a lot of people end up voting for Biden because of that. And a lot of people this time around were afraid. It's funny how people were afraid to announce like who they were voting for, but it seemed like this time around much more people were open about voting for Trump, and that's what led to a record turnout, whereas last time people were a little bit more hidden behind it. But identifying as a conservative just seems to be one of those things that would get you canceled no matter what.
Yeah, it's a dangerous world out there.
It's crazy.
But yeah, no, this guy's the people voted based on principle, right? Yeah, it's an analogy that I was going back and forth. It's like, say I was voting for the CEO of my company, right? And then it's like that crazy guy who's kind of a creep. I guess they're both, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, the people that other coworkers might think he's racist, but he has a good track record of successfully doing some things. And then this other guy who, is on the safety side, right? But nowhere nearly as capable of this guy on other terms, but this guy's a lot more professional. So I was just, at the end of the day, I think no matter what happens, I'm going to be fine. All the people, all the people that I love are going to be fine. So I don't really, the presidency to me and to everyone around me, I don't think it affects us as much as people want to believe.
It's a charade. The local politics have much more influence and direct impact on your life than what the large scale does. At the end of the day, even over the last 4 years, my life has been relatively the same, if not better.
Better, right?
If not better, you're directly in charge of it. The politicians are going to not save you, no matter who you are. So that's the beautiful thing of capitalism, is you can have the worst situation and build it into an empire if you put enough effort into it and go out and meet. There's always ways around everything like that. And as we get out of here, I always ask one question on the way out. And the one question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Las Vegas means home. Home for it's crazy. It's the melting pot of cultures, of food, of personalities, the heat. I love the heat. You know, this is I consider this home. I came from Mexico. It was a desert similar like this. And then coming here at UNLV was one of the most diverse, I think the most diverse university at some point. And I thought that was beautiful. I got to learn so much. And I wouldn't like to have grown up any other place as far as I know, right? Maybe by the beach would have been nice, but this is definitely a good stepping stone for whatever happens later on. I don't have plans in leaving. But this is the place as good and as bad as it gets. I've seen it in times of chaos and in times of despair, happiness. But this is definitely a place that I'm really excited for in the future.
Same, likewise. Where can all of the listeners learn more about you and Raging Tacos?
So you can, not me, Raging Tacos and Vegas Must Try are the places to go. At Vegas Must Try on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, and the same thing goes for Raging Tacos. It's Raging Tacos LV. Or if you go on our Instagram, you can catch our schedule and you can come and say hi to the truck somewhere.
Boom. Yeah, you guys have to try it. It's amazing. Food truck. Tacos are fantastic. George, thank you for coming on. I appreciate this conversation. We got to go in depth. We got to cover the first half of tacos and life and ideologies and philosophy, which I think is, if not just as important, or if not more important to the missions.
I agree with that 100%.
Appreciate you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time.